26th day, winter, pleasant morning of December. GCTC is an organization, so I'm doing anti-terrorism and counter-terrorism campaigns all over to make people aware of what is happening. 26/11 is a date which is etched in the hearts and minds of every Indian. Some years ago, we would see terrorism only on the screen, cellulite screen. And imagine our fantasies, aisa bhi ho sakta hai kya? But today, terrorism has gripped the entire globe. Not to forget India, which is one of the hardest hit by terrorism. And today, especially, we have all gathered here to remember the carnage of 26/11 and pay obeisance and homage to them. It's winter morning. It's difficult to break away from the shackles of scrumptious breakfast at home, parathas and vada sambar and whatever. So people are trickling in, and I'm sure by the latter part of the day we will have more people out here. Initially, I would like to call upon Mr. Sandeep Marwa, who is the founder member of GCTC and the chairman of Marwa Studios. This premises belongs to Marwa Studios, and he has been magnanimous to allow this function to be conducted here today. Sandeep is also the founder of Noida Film City, which is, as we all know, a very fast-growing film city. It's the hub of media today. All the television channels are here, barring one or two. He's also associated with around 5,000 television programs, 125 feature films, and 5,000 training films. He has produced a large number of short films in the world. And I understand very recently he has been honored with a doctorate degree by the International Roma Cultural University, Serbia. Without wasting much of time about his feats and achievements, I would request Mr. Sandeep Marwa to come on the dais, please.
Heartiest welcome to Marwa Studios. I'm recollecting two lines before I start for the day. Sabhi dishaon se shubh sundar, bhav vichar bhare nit antar, पुण्य धरा बन जाए स्वर्ग ये मेरे यत्नों से करुणा कर. What I'm trying to tell you in these two lines, see whether it is north or south, east or west, India or abroad, whether you're on the top of the hill or you are standing at a seashore, you are in a lush green garden and looking at some colorful flowers, or maybe looking at the most beautiful woman on earth. But the fact is, there are two things which are much more beautiful than what you can see with your naked eyes, and these two things are your thinking and your feelings. And the best part is that you don't even need eyes for that. They're right within you. On this very auspicious day, a sad day, I don't know how to express myself, let's pray Almighty, hey Lord, give me good thinking, give me good feelings, so that I can do good deeds, and through my good karmas, I would love to convert this earth into heaven. That's what I believe in, and I trust and presume that you will also believe in the same.
Vrinda Himachal Yamuna Ganga Uchchal Jaladi Taranga Tab Shubh Naame Jage Tab Shubh Ashish Mage Gaye Tab Jaya Gata Jan Jan Mangal Dayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He, Jaya He, Jaya 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 He.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm recollecting two more lines. कि काम शुरू करते नहीं भय से नीचे लोग, मध्यम तजते बीच में देख विषम संयोग, पर उत्तम वे लोग जो हर दुर्गम पथ झेल, दृढ़ता से बढ़ते कदम बाधाओं को ठेल. Now, probably would love to explain you in English You see, I belong to film, television, and media fraternity, and this is one industry where we have never believed in any caste, creed, religion, region, color, state, country. We have never believed in all these things. And we have believed only in one thing. We have one religion, and that is called entertainment. That's what we believe in. But still, I've gone little out of way to divide the society into three major segments. One, काम शुरू करते नहीं भय से नीचे लोग, people who are lazy bums, people who have 100 excuses for one job, people who have no enthusiasm in life, people who have no motivation, there have never been a self-starters. I have put all these kind of people into the third category, C class, the downtrodden people of the society. And people with little motivation, with little enthusiasm, with little work, with little push and pull may start little work. And then the minute they say bit of the hindrance, bit of the problems, bit of the unforeseen circumstances, they'll try to run away from the battlefield. Rather, they show their back to the battlefield. I put all these kind of people into B class, middle class. पर उत्तम वे लोग जो हर दुर्गम पथ झेल, who are the people of A class, first class, people who are ready to face all sort of problems, all sort of unforeseen circumstances. They are self-starters. They have lot of motivation for themselves. They are full of enthusiasm and zest. They have goals in life. They want to achieve their goals. They are honest to their profession. They are hardworking, and that's the reason that they ultimately turn out to be the achievers. And what you need to be achiever in life, you need to have a very, very strong determination. And I'm so happy, and I'm today so charged, because I'm today sharing this, not only the dice with the top achievers of the world, but this whole auditorium today is full of achievers. Let's give a big hand to each and every one present here. Thank you very much. Well, I'm in films, television, and media. Been a founder of Noida Film City. Luckily, Noida Film City today is the fastest growing film city in the world, and we are very comfortable in this part of the world. We could create 5 world records in media, but that's all beside point. I am just recollecting that day when Aditya Tikku, who came with an idea that this is an idea which I want to bring in. Then I said, I am already running an organization called World Peace Development and Research Foundation, and we have already touched large number of countries, large number of people from all the 196 countries of the world. And our aim is, our mission is to bring in love, peace, and unity through art and culture. But then what I realized, that the organization which he had already created and named it under GCTC actually ultimately means same thing. The only thing is that we're trying to catch the air from the other angle. And I immediately joined this GCTC, and we decided that we must have monthly programs keeping in mind some of the very important international issues related to terrorism and anti-terrorism activities, and must bring in some of the very important people of the world together to discuss and to have a brainstorming session so that some good energy can be created and can be passed on to the rest of the world. Today we are very happy that we are meeting again for a good cause. But we are sad because we are meeting on the wrong date. When I go back on 26/11, it's probably one of the saddest, one of the darkest days in Indian history. May I request everyone to please join me in remembering all those people who have shed their blood in this little war for peace a few years back, on 26th and 11. We'll have a 2 minutes silence for this. May I request everyone to please. Thank you very much. was 1947, 15th of August, and one song which was sung in the parliament, "ऐ मेरे वतन के लोगों, जरा आंख में भर लो पानी, जो शहीद हुए हैं उनकी जरा याद करो कुर्बानी." A song sung by Lata Mangeshkar, and our late Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru started crying in the parliament after listening to this beautiful number. And it's been almost 70 years. We have neither forgotten the blood what our soldiers have shed for independence, and we have never forgotten even this number, which has been repeatedly sung by hundreds and thousands of singers all over the country for all the different occasions, which we really don't need to be. Well, we have with us General Phillips, and General Phillips knows his subject very well. He's a chief here who is going to continue now on the subject of the day. So.
His Excellency, the Ambassador of Afghanistan to India, Shri Sandeep Marwa, General Rakesh Sharma, all the delegates, our friends from Iraq who are here right in front of us, Mrs. Prabha Rao, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed an honor for me to be standing here before you on this occasion, the 9th anniversary of the 26/11 attacks, when we as the GCTC have organized a small function, not only so that we remember the martyrs and wounded of that day, but we also recollect the mistakes that were made on that day as far as counterterrorism is concerned, and what we need to do as a nation and its security forces to ensure that a 26/11 is not repeated. And we also look at this as an opportunity to put together some ideas on the larger issue of security. And because I believe that India's strengths lie not so much in hard power security as much as in soft power, which is epitomized by the film city in Noida, the studio over here, and Shri Sandeep Marwa. That it's an occasion where we also see what we need to do as far as ensuring security of India, so that not only are we secure, so that we achieve our developmental goals as a nation, but we also move up the aspirational ladder and India achieves its aims to become a regional power and a global power of the future. 26/11 in India's history is a very, very important security event. I must admit that when I see Ambassador Abdali, as well as our friends from Iraq, where I have served as the in charge of security of 3 Iraqi provinces, the northern provinces. I was head of security of those provinces with a force of the United Nations with me. I do understand that the security events and incidents and casualties that Afghanistan and Iraq have suffered are far beyond what India has suffered or what India suffered on 26/11. It wouldn't be wrong for me to say that there are hundreds of 26/11s which have taken place in Iraq and which have taken place in Afghanistan. So to that extent, the fact that we have our friends from these two countries who have suffered so much on account of terrorism, that I think it's very apt and appropriate that they are sitting in our midst today. As far as 26/11 is concerned, I was a Major General commanding a division on the line of control that evening of 26/11, sitting on my desk and preparing for a event which was to take place in the division, an operational event next morning. When the TV in front of me around 10 o'clock in the night started showing that there are some gunmen who have fired in a restaurant called Leopold Cafe in Colaba in South Bombay. And as I kept sitting on my desk and watching the events unfold over that fateful night, I remember over the next couple of hours watching the attack unfold at the CST, the old Victoria terminus, now known as the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus, again in South Bombay. And then at some stage the attack on Taj Hotel and the Oberoi Hotel also started. Went to sleep, early morning got up, put on the TV again and found a ticker going that the three senior officers of the Maharashtra anti-terrorism squad, Mr. Hemant Karkare, along with two colleagues, Mr. Tamte, I think his name was, and Salaska, three of them, senior officers of the Maharashtra anti-terrorism squad had been martyred. And this was coming on the ticker. And then I went for this event where this was the news and there was a TV outside and everybody was watching. But as late as almost 12 hours after the incident, I found that there was still confusion as to whether this was actually a terror strike from across the border or a terror strike in any form, or whether it was just a gangland shootout in Mumbai, in the nature of which we are aware and lots of movies have been made in the past about these gangland shootouts which take place in Mumbai. And there was confusion. So we started our event and we came out for a tea break at about 10:30. And I remember calling somebody in Mumbai to ask as to what exactly was happening. Because somehow my sense told me that this is not a gangland shootout. Because somewhere in between you could also see on the ticker that there was a taxi in which a bomb had exploded in Crawford Market. There was another taxi in which a bomb had exploded in Villeparle. And by now it was clear that things were happening at 6 or 7 different venues in Bombay. It had already taken place in the CST terminal, railway terminal. It had already taken place in the morning in Kama Hospital, which is just outside the CST, St. Xavier's College, which is closer to Kama Hospital, Oberoi Hotel. And somewhere in all this, people were not aware that 2 terrorists were also in Nariman Point, where there was some sort of Jewish establishment which used to run over there. So there were these 7 places where firing had taken place, and there were these 2 places where explosions had taken place. But as yet, there was still confusion, at least in the media, as to what exactly had happened and was still unfolding. And then when we got back, I was diverted. I asked somebody in Mumbai as to what the hell is going on. And his response was very reflective of the type of confusion and rumor mongering that was taking place in Mumbai, because the answer I got was, no, it's not a terror strike. There were some jewelers who were having a conference in Mumbai, and they were staying in 2 or 3 hotels, and some international gang of criminals has taken control over these hotels, and they are taking hostages. So there's going to be a lot of money exchange, but it's nothing beyond that. But when we went back into that operational event that I was talking about, I asked my subordinate commanders who were all there as to what did they think it was happening. And I'm mentioning all this to show you that how unprepared and how confused we were on that morning of 27th November as to what was happening. And by now it was still, I would say, well into 13 or 14 hours since the incident had started. And there was still a lot of confusion. And I think it's only by that time, as we know, in hindsight, or reading about events on that day, that by that time, 10:30 of the morning, the NSG, National Security Guard, which is our premier counter-terrorism force, had arrived at the Taj Hotel and had started their deployments. And then we witnessed over the next 60 hours or so, we saw as the 26/11 incident unfolded, we saw things in a clearer perspective. But it also became very, very clear as we, over those 60 hours, as to how unprepared India was for such a situation. So if I was to look back at 26/11 and firstly spell out as to what exactly was this incident and what were wrong with our responses, I'll just sum them up in the next few minutes. As far as this incident was concerned, there were 10 terrorists who had come that day from Karachi via the sea. They'd come in a larger ship, then transferred on to a smaller ship, and then onto a fishing boat which they had taken control of, and they had killed the crew. They came closer to the Bombay coast, got into rubber dinghies, the military, the navy variety, and came and landed off near Colaba in a fishing colony. There were 10 terrorists. Of what we know, they were Lashkar-e-Taiba Fidain, as we understand the groups, and they were very standard modules and standard way of attacking. And these 10 terrorists split up into 5 groups of buddy pairs. In each group, there were 2 terrorists. And these 5 headed for 5 different locations on taxis which they picked up from where they had come onto the main road. And in 2 of these taxis, when they got off and they went to these 5 different places, Leopold Cafe, Taj Hotel, Oberoi Meridian, the Nariman House. So they spread into 5 different locations, and two of these groups, when they got off the taxis, they left bombs inside that, which exploded later, an hour later in Crawford Market and Ville Parle, which added to the general confusion of that night. So there were these 7 places where attacks took place, and then initial response was by the first responders were the Mumbai police. They were totally taken by surprise. The maximum casualties. The first attack, like I told you, was in Leopold Cafe, where some diners got killed, and simultaneously the attack started in the CST, Mumbai, where a lot of passengers, lot of innocent passengers were spread. We've all seen those pictures, photographs of CST, Mumbai on that fateful night, when Ajmal Kasab and his buddy were standing there with AK-47s and firing at the passengers as they came out of those trains which were arriving over there. And then somehow they had a plan to home on to, from Leopold Cafe, those 2 who were there later joined the group which had already arrived in the Taj Hotel. So they became 4 over there, and there were these other 3 locations in Nariman Point which people were not aware of at that time, and they had also hit the Oberoi Hotel. And the CST lot was also moving towards Oberoi when they were intercepted by a police patrol, and we all know that Ajmal Kasab was picked up while his companion was killed over there. Now this event, as it unfolded, the first responders were the Mumbai police. They were not really ready for it. There were lots of casualties. Within the first 3 hours, they had lost 16 policemen, including 8 senior officers, including the 3 senior Maharashtra ATS officers whom I mentioned about. And they didn't have any weapons. They were using archaic 303 rifles, for which they had to run to some armory somewhere and get it, and maybe a few of them had 9mm pistols. And they were facing people, well-trained terrorists, who were carrying AK-47 rifles, they were carrying IEDs, they were carrying all sorts of sophisticated grenades. And it took, even in Delhi, it took at least 2 to 3 hours for people to realize actually what was happening, and that there was a terror component to what was happening. So even the National Security Guard, which is supposed to be your elite counter-terrorist force, the first information they get is some 2 hours after the first firings have taken place, which means that by this time it's almost maybe 4 or 4.5 hours after the terrorists have landed in Bombay. And then there is another set of second response or third response, whatever you want to call it. I call it possibility of a third response because I've always believed that there was a second response in between which went missing. And if that had happened, maybe even before the NSG had arrived, we would have been able to sort out whatever threat there was. But the NSG did arrive, and they arrived about 12 to 13 hours after the incident had commenced. And then there was again a set of responses which would definitely had been different had they come in much earlier. Had they come in much earlier, the terrorists would not by now have taken dominant positions in Taj Hotel, from which it had by now, 12 hours or 13 hours later, with guidance by their handlers from Pakistan who were watching the Indian news channels, picking up what exactly is happening, conveying it to the terrorists, and sort of guiding their operations as that evening and the next day went by. To give you an example, if a media channel says that there are 5 members of parliament who are in this hotel and effort is being made to contact them, then the message goes from the handlers to the terrorists that there are 5 members of parliament who are there, identify them, get hold of them and take them as hostages. So this is the sort of things that continued for a very long time, for 60 hours. And even after 60 hours, when we say that generally the incident died down, there was still 1 terrorist left, and it took almost 96 hours before that last terrorist was also cleared. So it's a very traumatic experience for Mumbai and for our security establishment. But it gave enough cause for all of us to sit back and analyze as to what went wrong. Because if I were to look back, everything that you could think of could go wrong, went wrong as far as this incident is concerned. The first one was that from 2007, there was a gentleman who had made 12 trips, American Pakistani who had made 12 trips to India and to Mumbai to carry out reconnaissance of these areas and other areas, possible alternate sites in India, and this had not been picked up. And now in retrospect, we know that even if it had been picked up by the Americans at some stage, the sharing of information mechanisms was not good enough or smart enough to make sure that the right red flags were raised and we were able to respond in a correct manner. So starting from there, the fact that somebody applied in Chicago to our consulate for a visa, and he was given a 5-year visa, and he made 12 visits with malign intentions, planning a reconnaissance under the guidance of the LET. And at some stage, the American intelligence establishment did pick up some information, but still, at the end of it, when it happened in Mumbai on that day, we were totally taken by surprise. So this was the first one. The second one was very poor intelligence as far as our own intelligence establishment is concerned, that you could not pick up some happening like that, which unfolded not over one day. It unfolded over a period of months, including major military movements which had taken place as far as the Pakistan military is concerned as a precursor to this event. So in retrospect, we know that in preparing for this event, even the military had made major movements which are nobody picked up. So then there is, so I said the second failure was intelligence failure, which I think we've all had a lot of time to think about. And then was the responses. Responses were very tardy, inadequate, poorly equipped, whether it was the Mumbai police is concerned or whoever came as part of the first response mechanism, which unfolded over the first 12 hours or so before the NSG came in. And by then it was too late, because like I told you, over the 12 hours, a lot of casualties had already happened, and the terrorists in the Taj Hotel had dug in. And what people were not aware at that time, that they had already taken hostages in the Jewish Shabbat house, and they were sort of waiting, and at some stage they killed the hostages, and nobody came to know for a very long time. So our responses were very weak, they were inadequate. And then the media, the way the media handled this entire thing was very, very immature, where the media, like I told you, were actually giving information to the handlers, who were using the information which was being provided by the media in terms of who exactly was in the hotel and whom the people are trying to rescue, and that information passing on to the terrorists that X, Y or Z is inside the hotel and they need to be picked up, they're important personalities and they need to be picked up as hostages. So this is something else that In retrospect, after the incident took place, there were a number of inquiries which were conducted. They were conducted within the government and within the security establishment to actually pin down what went wrong and what needs to be done. And these recommendations were implemented over the next few years and definitely have raised the level of preparedness and the level of response as far as this incident is concerned. But then there is a tendency to forget. There is a tendency, as these incidents and events recede into memory, recede into the past, there is a tendency to forget. And we've seen that with the Pathankot incident, that on a day that the terrorists struck the Pathankot airbase, again, you could see that the preparedness was not optimal. And to that extent, I think it's a very opportune by GCTC that we are using the opportunity of the 9th anniversary of 26/11, not only to remember the 166 martyrs and 600 who were injured on that day, but also to review as to what went wrong, what was it that we needed to do, what is it that we need to do in the future, and make sure that the lessons from 26/11 remain alive in our memory so that we do not have to learn these lessons again and again. With that, I wish GCTC, Shri Sandeep Marwa and his wonderful organization who are collaborating with this event today, all the speakers who are here with us, whom we would love to listen to, and hope that we have a very, very good event today. Thank you very much.
Lieutenant General Philip Campos, you were talking and I think we were actually watching a picture. You have explained and you have expressed so deeply, so easily that we could actually create a picture of what all other day happened in Mumbai. Before we break for the tea, 5 minutes session, anyone would like to add on right now from the house? We have 5 minutes. Anyone would like to add on, speak a little bit here, please?
There's one aspect sir has perhaps not touched upon, or maybe I was not attentive at that point of time. That is the maritime policing. There are umpteen number of dhows and catamarans and shipping boats and all. It is just like in a city, if there is no registration number for a vehicle, it goes chaotic. So it is something like that. Of course, I think now several things have been done to have proper license and registrations and GPS systems available in these dhows and all. But that was the state of affairs at that point of time when this had gone. The maritime policing was much, much primitive in our case.
Thank you for reminding me of something I missed out. I possibly, there are so many details. But I'd also like to mention here that this was again a major weak point which was found on that day, and some action has been taken to address that issue. Largely, if I were to explain, it's that we have a navy which looks after the outer seas, and in between we have the Coast Guard, and the closest 5 kilometers are looked after by the Marine Police of the state. So in this case, it was the Maharashtra Marine Police, which has a certain organization. But as a consequence of the inquiries and that were done after 26/11, there is one more force which has come in, which belongs to the Navy, which is now superimposed on the Marine Police. So it's no longer just Marine Police boats which are patrolling the area and checking out the identity of these dhows and whatever. It is also a fleet of small patrol boats being manned by proper Indian Navy personnel, which has added another sort of tier of security in this area. Thank you very much.
Yeah, anyone else here?
Prabha Rao, IDSA. While not holding brief for an intelligence organization, but I would like to clear up a few things. It is not correct to say that there was no intelligence threat. There was a very specific intelligence threat about LET training people on waterborne attacks. This was done. Unfortunately, as in all cases of intelligence, it is very difficult to get specifics. And that, as you know, is something not only us, but countries across the globe are facing. Second, the threat that we had got was so specific that Hemant Karkare had gone to each and every hotel and told them to put up a scanner, which was not there before. The fault that he made was that he went in without any weapons at all, but with a bulletproof jacket which did not hold the bullets, and which was a faulty jacket. That is actually what happened. As regards intelligence failures, it is very, very easy to talk about intelligence failures across the globe. But the point is, it is humanly impossible to kind of look at all the information that is coming in. If we don't have the resources of, say, NSA US, and we have far less attacks than what is happening in US or Paris or elsewhere. And that is something that I think we need to talk about. It's not that there is no intelligence. Whatever little is coming in, it is being acted upon. Pathankot, again, the intelligence was given well in time. In fact, it was given more than 36 hours before the attack happened. So there are these other aspects which we need to do, and we need to, I think, perhaps improve on our technical intelligence and certainly have greater cyber cooperation, as has been discussed yesterday. But to put a preponderance of blame on the intelligence organizations is perhaps not quite correct. Thank you.
My question is, the NSG, as you said, got information about 4 hours after the event, 4 to 5 hours. Why does it take 12 to 14 hours to reach there? Why 10 hours to fly from Delhi to Bombay? Any solution being worked out after that? Firstly, it's not 10 to 12 to 14 hours. They were there at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you calculate, it comes to about 7 hours plus. There are various reasons if you actually analyze those 7 hours as to what happened. But that is how it is when you suddenly get taken by surprise from the highest level to everybody who was part of the system. And one of the major outcomes of the inquiry which followed has handled this issue by creating local hubs or regional hubs of the NSG. So NSG is no longer based only in Delhi. Now we have NSG hubs, including one in Mumbai, which is able to respond much faster. So like I said, it was a whole set of errors, mistakes, whatever you can call it, but many of them have been addressed. But I can say this, having inquired into the Pathankot incident officially, that there are still loopholes which keep coming up. As these incidents fade in our memory, there is a tendency to take things for granted, and then when something happens, you find that you're again caught by surprise. So, like I said, that's where it's useful that we are sitting here today to recount what has happened and what we need to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamasab. The next session is going to be definitely much more interesting, and I'm very happy that Honorable Shri Shashankji, Ambassador Shashank, the former Secretary, Foreign Secretary, Government of India, is already here, who's going to chair the next session, and our speakers for the next session is going to be our Honorable guest, His Excellency Shaida Muhammad Abdali. We're going to have Asauddin Kwaisi Sahab. We're going to have Prabha Rao ji, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma ji, Simi Anderson ji, Professor Rajesh Rajagopalan, and Professor Alok Bansal. I hope everyone is here. We still have some time. If they're not, I'm sure they're going to join in the next 15 minutes. We'll break for tea.